by a coworker and not the chief, by the way, that made it very awkward. I told Hanson they should have been written by him, and it should have come from him, and it made for an uncomfortable work environment. The training officer, Eric Hickman, was at that meeting when I told Chief that, and he agreed. The sad thing is that we do have a 36-hour, at my level, 36-hour minimum that the state says you have to have. And I've done over 65 hours of training, which is almost double that to be required. But of course, like you said, training matters. And in my opinion, the calls when people are actively on a call, they discuss the calls when they come back a lot of times. Lots. And so you learn from being on calls. I think that the calls need to count. It is long past time to have a permanent, actual paramedic fire chief. I was under the understanding that Hanson was hired as a temporary position while a permanent paramedic firefighter chief could be found. This has not been the case. Until this hire, all of my chiefs over the years have been paramedics who could and did respond as a paramedic to Code 99s, which is no breathing, MVAs, and fire calls. They all lived in town and were available. This is not the case. I haven't seen him at very many trainings with the department, which brings up how well does he know what's actually happening at the training. I got a call from Leo Robb, a friend at the department, calling to make sure I was going in to meet with Hanson because he said, "I'd hate to see you let go." Why didn't I get a call from Hanson like that? After that call from Leo, I couldn't help but think, apparently the chief doesn't care if I'm around. He has never called me about coming in. I had waited almost a week before I brought myself to go in because it was embarrassing. I feel like I try to do a good job. I'm involved in the community. Sometimes I'm not there, but other times I am. Please talk to the part-timers who have been hired about what they think of the work environment of the department. I was going to give an example, but out of respect to their privacy, I won't. I would just like to say, please talk to Christian, Guy Harshberger, who is a retired chief from Dexter. He's on our pay staff, and Jeff. We need to change our leadership. My own daughter, who last year was a junior in high school, asked about starting to volunteer and be a cadet. I said no. I do not want her to be exposed to the poor work environment right now in the department. We need a change in leadership. There's a huge lack of trust with our current chief. With the whole conflict of interest that came up with the former city administrator and our chief, the boss being hired by the employee, I was surprised when Hanson wasn't terminated at the same time the city administrator was. Please set things right by getting an actual paramedic chief. I'm not usually one to make a lot of waves. I try to stay quiet and just focus on the job that has to be done. The council needs to know how desperately we need a change in leadership. This situation is critical. Thank you for this.
When you did make an appointment and go in and discuss it, were arrangements made so that you could continue on,
yes.
Or have you been dismissed?
Yes, and he was accommodating because he knew I'm a softball coach. My softball season is starting next week, and he's made it to where I could come in for a training once a month to make sure that I'm current with the proper equipment and to do training on the side electronically too. But I do most of my volunteering in the summer when I'm off, and other times throughout the year I typically do Monday nights. I would sign up over the years, but he was accommodating to help me to be able to do that.
May I ask you one more question?
Yes.
You obviously feel strongly about this, and that probably it affected you emotionally. Why are you still doing it?
I care about the community, and when I first started volunteering, I wanted to help people in the community. And it's worth it to me to go through this to get what's best for the people.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Troy.
Go ahead and give David a shot at it.
Oh, David.
I need a little clarification on Mr. Oakridge's statement. When these EMs go on calls, they're not getting credit for
The call time, is that correct? That is correct.
Yeah.
they're not getting credit time.
They don't get credit for
Okay,
the
because
call time.
there's a phrase that's out in the world, it's called on-the-job training. And when you are involved, because I've been involved with it, well, and it don't matter what the curriculum is.
Right.
If you're there and doing the job like these people are, and they're not getting credit for that, that's wrong. That's entirely wrong.
Okay.
I agree.
Mr. Schuler?
I'm for the dinosaurs, Steve. There's only 4 guys here that have been in the fire department longer than I have. Only 3 guys, actually. That one there, this one just spoke to you, and that was the end. I was in there for 17 years. I retired in 2017. I can speak to a lot of the things that have been discussed here. The training doesn't change. Training is training. You're required to do it. The state required it. How you manipulate it around is up to you. We've done it a whole bunch of different ways. We used to, at one time, would cut people like Dave slack. Dave has always been very conscientious of coming to training and retaining his certification and so forth. We never suffered through that because we knew the situation as a teacher and all that. I don't quite understand the program that's here because I believe it's needlessly complex as far as the training program goes. To give you an example, when I came in the department on the ambulance, we got paid by the hour. If we were on a call, when we were on transport, we got paid by the hour. And that changed because the IRS said you can't do that. So they changed it to a situation where we got paid on a full number of hours counted as a call. And then they changed to wherever they're at now. I don't know where they're at now, but a lot of things that people mush together is that EMS and fire are 2 separate things. EMS is EMS. A lot of people, for instance, the first responder, EMR, is not necessarily just EMS. I was a fire chief, so I was a paramedic, and at that time that was what SWAT is, and that's what a lot of the other guys were. And I ran calls, but that doesn't account for what's here now. I guess what I'm getting up to is there's going to be change, but the change has to be in such a way as it recognizes the people that are there. I believe that the volunteer program, if they weren't showing up for training, what I would have done is said, you can't go on any calls until you get your training hours. In that course, you just don't get to go on any more calls. That's not the way that they saw to do that, but that's the way I would have done it. I think that, before I fall down, I think that maybe we've got more hostility. Thank you, sir.
I got you.
I think most of the hostility is generated here is because of the fact that there's been so much change in so short a time. We went through 3. So when I got out as fire chief, we've had 3 different fire chiefs since then, and I retired in 2017. Not 17, 7. Slap me alongside the head and make me save money. I guess what I'd like to say to the people that are here, I know you put a lot of time in, but when you commit to a call, to a shift, you're committed to that shift. And if you don't show up, That's your fault. Don't blame the fire department. You had a chance to be there. If you, once you make a commitment, you make a commitment. Particularly when you're looking at a driver type position and so forth, because that, you can't run an ambulance with one person. As far as training on an ambulance, you don't train on an ambulance. Whoever saw that, you sit there and take care of patients. You might call it training, you can pencil whip anything you want in it as much as you want. If you're a driver, you're driving. There's no training there unless you dodge the traffic and all that training. So no, there's a whole lot of different things that have not been brought up to I sense a lot of hostility here. The fact that they haven't got a new fire chief is definitely on the council. It's actually on the city administrator, because the council doesn't have any authority to hire a chief or even discipline a chief. They don't have anything to do with the chief. It's nice that your people are here presenting information, but the guy sitting right over there on the end of the table is the one who hires the chief.
No, not really.
No.
No reflection, Mike. But I'll shut up.
No, you can
You
talk.
have more to say.
I can keep
I can
talking.
wait, I can hold my
I
hand.
don't have anything else to say.
I'm glad you spoke.
Thank you.
But, you know, I understand what everybody's saying tonight. And one of the things, I have Mr. Hansen's contract. I have our charter. You know, I have Messina's contract. And I understand Rick is an intern because we just put him
Pro temp.
pro temp. But I want to ask you something. Before you let all these people go, who did you get consent to do that?
I talked to the city administrator,
No, you talked to the who?
city
And
administrator,
that is who?
Bill.
That's right. He's not. He gets paid by the hour. He's a pro temp. So before you did that, you should have went to this body and asked what was going on. Yes, you
Actually,
read the
yes.
charter.
I would correct you.
Well, you correct me here.
He is a city administrator and considered a city administrator.